This is my off-grid camper. Let me show you. This is my 2003 Keystone Laredo. It's a 25-foot fifth wheel and sleeps two, has a queen bed, kitchen, shower, all that. One slide out, and I have it set up fully off grid. And if you've noticed in some of my older videos, I've actually had it in Arizona. This here's my wife's truck. I got her. It's a 2006 Amarillo 6-liter. It's currently our RV hauler because, as you've seen, I took the dually and it's now a picker truck instead of our RV hauler like it used to be. So take it from me, don't haul your camper with a ridiculously lifted truck, because look at that. Those steps should be a step off the ground, but they're right on the ground right there. Use a stock height truck for towing your camper, or at least a minimum 2 or maximum 2 to 3 inch lift. I paid $5 grand for this trailer off Marketplace, and I picked it up because it was the best deal for a trailer just big enough, but it's also completely solid, which is nice. It's got the fiberglass hard panel side, the roof's in great shape, and it never really got used much. It spent most of its life just parked like most campers do. And it's all aluminum framed, so it actually only weighs about 7,000 pounds. I guess I'll just start with a walk around. So it has a fairly large water tank in the back. When you fill it up, it lasts about a week worth of our showers and, you know, just water usage. And then the holding tanks, they can last about 2 to 3 weeks. And in case we need to dump or need some extra capacity, we do have a Blue Boy for our extra sewage capacity. When we're off grid, we normally just let our shower and sink water run down onto the ground, so we're not filling up our tank any faster than we need to. I'll just climb up on the roof there and show you my solar setup. So I actually have much less solar than most people would think you need. 100 watt panel, 100 watt panel, and 4 40 watt panels over there. So I have only 360 watts of solar on here, and that's actually all I need. Just 200 watt Amazon solar panels. They're $100 each. Couldn't get a better deal for solar. I really like them. They have impressive output. Anyways, they're just mounted down with aluminum angle brackets. I keep them flat. If I wanted, I could get things to angle them in the winter, but haven't really had a need to. And I seal all the screws down and all that to keep the moisture out of the roof. Of course, you don't want to mount a solar panel and have it rot your roof out because it's not watertight. Anyways, I started with these 4 panels, which is just from Canadian Tire. I got like all 4 of these for same thing, like $200 with pretty small, low quality charge controllers. Anyways, those are all wired up in parallel, and the wires going through this septic vent down into the battery box. And I got this, I retaped all the seams and I recoated the roof. This is good to keep the moisture out, keep the roof from rotting. Worst thing, like what kills almost all campers, is just not having the roof sealed, and moisture gets in there and wrecks it, and you don't want that to happen. My wife and I, with our dogs, have lived in this trailer for about, I think the most was 5 months at a time, and we were totally fine, had everything we need. We weren't missing out on anything. We've been to all the western states in it, and hopefully we'll start heading east in it one of these coming winters. This truck isn't a bad tow rig. The only thing I'm really unhappy about it is a short box, so it has a smaller fuel tank. So instead of a 1,000-kilometer fuel tank, it's more like a 750-kilometer fuel tank. And the short box doesn't actually give me a bunch of room to put in an extra toolbox and a slip tank. So I actually have to modify a special slip tank to fit in there, which is also going to lower its fuel capacity, which is too bad because when I'm driving through the states, I like to be able to fill up the fuel tank while I'm in a state or province where diesel is real cheap, so then I can basically drive the rest of the way without having to buy overpriced fuel. Especially if I'm driving through California, I prefer to buy fuel in Arizona and do the trip without having to buy any California diesel. Sad to say that I tend to be a little bit greedy with power, so I do actually bring along a generator and don't just rely off solar. Most of the time I can go ahead and run just solar, but I have Starlink internet that I mount to the roof and bring with us for the trip. And if you're running internet at night, that uses a lot of power, especially since we don't have a ridiculous amount of panels or batteries. Anyways, this is just a Honda EU 2000. And I could not be more happy with these. I always thought like generators had to be way bigger and these little suitcases were useless. Now, we can't run our AC off of this. We can run the microwave, and it does charge the batteries well. But this thing is so good on fuel and so quiet. If you go ahead and say you want to do some internet, some work online, watch some TV, Netflix stream, and your batteries are low, just fire that up, let it run for maybe 2 hours to charge your batteries in so you can run your Wi-Fi and all that stuff. And it'll charge your batteries all the way up. You have tons of power, and it'll maybe burn like 50 cents worth of gasoline. Like, it's so cheap that bringing one of those along just as a luxury, or if you have a really cloudy or like bad weather week where you just want the extra power, 100% worth having one of these. And it really doesn't cost that much if you're only running it for an hour or two a day. Front of the trailer here is our battery bank. I just built a box out of this OSB, and it actually fits in it. See, because it originally had a single battery box that vent was on that just fit one regular truck battery. But I went and made it so it can fit 4, and it's all treated with fiberglass resin down there in case there's any battery leakage. I just have one battery in there because the other ones I currently am using, but I just use 4 truck batteries, like the same that are in my pickup, because I can get those pretty good. But for 4 of them, that's all the power I need. You know, technically you only need like 400 watts of solar for 4 batteries. If I do want to spend the money at some point, I can upgrade, but it's really not necessary for what I'm doing. 4 batteries out of my diesel pickups fit in there just fine, and it's tons of capacity. And then I did originally have a super cheap charge controller off Amazon, which was rated for like 40 amps, and it actually crapped out and then was overloading my batteries. So it only lasted a couple months. Don't buy those. Once I bought this, which is a 50 amp MPPT 100 charge controller from Victron Energy, I can control this with my phone, set its cut in and cut out. I can monitor my batteries all from Bluetooth. But it's got multi-point tracking, so this is actually far more efficient than any of the other charge controllers. And honestly, this was about $200 American that I bought while I was in Arizona and I needed the upgrade, but well worth it. It does its job and it's way more efficient. Like, it was like, after going from the cheap charge controller to this charge controller, I have like twice the power that I did before. So with that 12 volt, we run our water pump, we charge our phones off 12 volt, we run all of the lights in the trailer are 12 volt LEDs. So we just try and run everything 12 volt as much as possible for efficiency. But when we want to run 110, I have this inverter up here that I have wired in to the electrical sockets. But that, I think, is a 4,000 watt inverter, just from Canadian Tire. It was like 150 bucks. Couldn't be happier with it. It has a remote display that I have inside the cabin so I can check my battery voltage. Couldn't be happier with that. Absolutely recommend. It does everything I need it to. Is have those wired up to the batteries. And yeah, so that's to run our Starlink, to charge our laptops. That's about it, honestly. Anything else, if I want to charge my cordless tools, anything I need to run 110, that inverter will do it. We could actually, if we had enough sun coming in, run the microwave off of that too. I have 2 30-pound propane tanks in here. That running our like stove, and when it's kind of cold at night, running our furnace, that'll easily last us 2 weeks to a month before having to go get those filled up. Which, yeah, I mean, that's not like 100% off grid like if we had wood heating and stuff like that. But when we're in the States, propane is so cheap anyways, and it works well, and you can just go get them filled up. Not a big deal, but those come in handy. And 30 pound, we used to have 20 pounds in our old camper, and we had to get those filled up way more. Oh yeah, and for our water heater, right? So we, stove, furnace, water heater, all run off propane. And showering, every second day to every day. And running the furnace when it's really cold, and the cooking. Yeah, we can easily get like a couple weeks to a month out of those 2 30-pound propane tanks. So these right here are my extra water storage, and those, I think about 3 or 4 of those is equal to the tank that's actually in the trailer. I could get like a big water bladder or something like that, but these, what's the capacity of these anyways? 25 liters. All right, so those are 25 liters each. And if I go and fill up the water tank on the trailer and fill up both of those and just put them in the back of the truck to fill the tank as I needed, I'm good for a good couple weeks for water. And then if I'm running out to town for groceries or to go do something anyways, I fill those up with water to pour into the trailer for extra water. I like those because they're a good size to carry around. They don't take up much room in the back of the truck. And They're pretty cheap, so I'd probably continue. I'd just buy like 2 more of those so I have just that extra water capacity. As you can see, we haven't been to most of the states, but we've been to all the western ones. So on a future trip, we would like to go down and check out New Mexico and Texas, and then maybe make our way back up through Colorado and Wyoming. I guess we'll see. This here is just a little 3-burner stove, little oven, and yeah, you can actually like bake a whole chicken in that and everything. We don't do a lot of oven cooking while we're in the desert because of how warm it makes it. Of course, I do bring along the propane barbecue and try and cook everything outside on the barbecue. Here's our little microwave I was talking about. It's not a very big microwave, but if you really need to microwave something, you can. We honestly just use it as a cupboard because it's a waste of power to microwave stuff. I absolutely love these little camper fridges. They are so efficient. So this one runs off electric and gas, or electric or gas. So if I have a lot of power coming in from the sun, I can switch it over to electric and it'll actually use up that extra power to keep the stuff cold while saving on gas. Otherwise, we just run that on propane. So yeah, I mean, the fridge, that is another thing that consumes the propane, unfortunately. But it's really good. It actually, when it's like 40 degrees Celsius outside, so like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it actually keeps ice cream frozen in there, absolutely no problem. So I couldn't be happier with it. And for a camper fridge, it is more than big enough. We have always been able to keep everything we need between shopping trips in there. Keep things frozen, keep things cold, never had a problem with it. First thing I did when I decided that I was gonna make this camper solar, which was actually the plan before I even bought it, but replaced all the lights with LED bulbs because they use like 1/10 of the power. Absolutely necessity. Get rid of those old incandescent bulbs. If you don't go and get LED bulbs, there's really just no point trying to be efficient with solar energy anyways, because you're going to waste all of your power just running your light bulbs. So yeah, absolutely everything in here has been converted over to LEDs, and we have everything as efficient as it can be. This is our cat's place. We built her a little spot because our cats and dogs come traveling with us, but we built her in one of the storage compartments, a little room where her litter box and food and water is. So this is what I was talking about right here. Right here under the bed, we have the control for the inverter. So I can turn that on. Once it kicks on, tells me I'm at 13.5 volts, tells me how much power I'm using. So yeah, I can use that to monitor my voltage, turn the inverter on and off, and see how much power I'm using. Yeah, I spend most of my time camping in a spot that's in the Arizona desert, just south of Havasu, just north of Yuma. And there's so much sun coming down from the sky. Why would you want to have any extra power anyways? You might as well just harness that sun power to keep your lights going and run your fridge and everything. The best thing about this setup here is this is about 10 grand altogether. And I just wanted to show you this because you really don't need any really large amount of money to do this traveling. We met lots of people down in the desert that their setup is like 50, 60, 100, $200,000. But we bought this, and this is more than we needed. We did a trip down with our old bumper pole, which was a pretty crappy trailer, but even cheaper. You could do 5 grand and still have a setup like this. I think that I'll probably end up getting another truck, probably a single rear wheel, but a crew cab long bed that's stock height or just barely over to pull this camper instead, and a 6-speed manual preferably, because I prefer towing with a manual in comparison to an automatic. But yeah, otherwise it's a pretty good setup. Someday we might upgrade to a bigger 5th wheel, but honestly this size is perfect. It has literally everything we need. We called this trailer home for the entire winter last year, and we got to see California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona. I also want to talk about 5th wheel hitches for a minute, because everyone goes and spends ridiculous amounts of money on 5th wheel hitches for reasons I can't seem to figure out. This 5th wheel hitch, the truck had the rails. I found this hitch for 50 bucks. I've used lots of different 5th wheel hitches and they basically all work the same. Don't go and spend a bunch of money. Make sure it's good, mechanically sound, rated for what you need, but you do not need a $2,000 hitch to tow your trailer. You really don't. It works just the same as a $50 marketplace hitch. Those pickup truck batteries are not ideal, you know. I could do lithium or something like that if I was living in this full time, but that way I can just take the batteries out of my other trucks I'm not driving anyways, that are new batteries I bought, and just put them in here without spending extra money on batteries. And they got like 50-60 usable amp hours per battery, so I got at least 200 usable amp hours in that battery bank when I have 4 batteries in there, which is more than I need. But altogether, like the setup, $200 for charge controller, $200 for inverter, $400 generator, maybe $400 in solar panels, some wiring and stuff, like 1,500 bucks basically, and you're entirely off grid. It will be more if you want to use more, right? We have Starlink that costs money, but that was just so that way we could have internet while traveling, even though we got pretty good unlimited data plans anyways. When I was originally looking at campers, I didn't want one with a slide because I was like, oh, that's just more stuff to break. But then after having a camper without a slide and then having one with, absolutely get a slide out. Best thing you can ever have. Like, it makes this feel so much bigger. It's like the floor space is 100 times more than it was. Have a slide out, okay? They work. They're not that complicated. Just keep them well lubed and it'll make your little camper feel a million times bigger. Even like they have slides on campers that are in like the box of a truck. And I've been in those campers and they seem like they're 100 times bigger than other campers. So if you're choosing between not having a slide or having a slide, definitely get a slide. Trust me on that one.